silent, very peaceful game drive, but now I'm afraid that you have to be subjected to my nattering, possibly from here on out, depending on the Wendy's condition. And I'm slowly meandering my way along Arethusa towards the Birmingham boys. They haven't been up to terribly much. It's boiling hot. And just for a quick run through, for the third time this afternoon, if I could say a very big and still genuine the third time round, a very big thank you to Zoomy Jules, to Shamrock, to Dennis in Nova Scotia, as well as Bob in Iowa for sending through all of your updates as to what the wild dog got up to this afternoon while we were away from them, apparently being chased by waterbuck and elephant. I know that you would have seen me with the wild dogs very briefly and then leave. I know that you would have seen me with the wild dogs very briefly and tourists, and it's only fair that everybody gets an equal opportunity to spend some time with them. And of course, it's very important to the conservation and unfortunately it is a two-vehicle sighting. Usually we're allowed 3 safari vehicles with any animal at any sighting, but you can change that depending on the circumstances. In this case, it was decided because it's right in front of the Arethusa Lodge that it would be switched to 2 vehicles at a time. Generally, that rule is there for making sure that there's no undue pressure on the animal concerned. So, for example, if we've got something like really young cubs at a den site, or just really young cubs in general, and in thick bush, then the station or the vehicle that is in charge of that sighting will determine how many vehicles can be there. In this case, I left because there were other people now waiting. They'd been waiting for quite a while. Had our turn spent with them. And it was time for us to go. I will try and get us back there later in the afternoon. We'll wait and see if they start to wake up and get active as it's a bit cooler. And then we'll head back across. So I have a favor to ask of all of you. Although bear in mind that I can't necessarily rush off back there depending on how many vehicles there are, but keep your eye on the Arethusa Dam cam as well, and let's see if we spot when they start to look a bit restless and a bit like they might go for a bit of a walk, maybe even go and hunt things. But it's the areas for deliveries. I don't know, there's just something about it that somehow I miss the main road and end up on a random 2-track on the outskirts of the lodge, so I hope they don't take offense to my meanderings. Alright, sorry guys, bear with me one moment. If I can get a word in edgeways, I'm going to try and get that update again from the guys. Doesn't appear to be working. Stations, how many vehicles on standby for that Madoda Ingwe? Is it, do I get it correct that it's on the western side of the airstrip? Copy that, thanks. If I could take a standby on that, what's the position of that side? Okay, copy that, thanks. Running, and he has a monitor lizard to show you, so let's head across to him.
Hello everyone, and take a closer look here. There's a wonderful and this is, I think, hiding in cavities in trees, and all we see is their head poking out. And this is, I think, the first time that I've actually managed to show you this rock monitor lizard doing its business out and about. This individual's about 2 feet long, so quite a big lizard, but they get about twice to 3 times the size of this. They can be really, really huge depending on the area that they operate in or where you find them. I think this one may be a little bit nervous of our presence. That's why it's kind of seeking a refuge under this fallen down tree. But let's just wait a while and see what its next move is. They're experts in seeking out nests and eggs. That's the majority of their food comes from raiding those kinds of spots. And they're incredibly good climbers. Like I say, we often find them hiding in cavities and trees. That's where they often sleep out. So happy that you guys got off to a wonderful start this afternoon with that large pack of wild dogs. I've yet to see either of the packs. Oh, now I'm just told that you didn't get to see too much of the wild dogs. Apologies. The technical issues are plaguing us at the moment. Just going to see if we can reposition ever so slightly. It's going to be difficult to get another view of this monitor lizard. I would like to try and spend as much time with it as possible, because it's an animal that we so rarely encounter. Maybe there's a little spot that I can sneak through around the other side of these bushes here. Understandably, it's going to be a little bit nervous of us in this big vehicle, but I think we may be able to sneak you 1 or 2 more views. Such a prehistoric looking animal. Get in this area, there's so many more, but usually the reptiles tend to avoid us, including the snakes. We don't see nearly as many snakes as we'd like to, but hey, who knows, maybe this afternoon will be our lucky afternoon. Speaking of luck, I'm hoping that we bump into Kunyuma, a young male leopard. And as soon as we got that report, we headed straight out into the area where he was seen. But he was lost moving through some thick bush, and we didn't manage to relocate on him. He was lost. All likely he is probably snoozing now and maybe thinking about getting up a little bit later on, which will make finding him a lot easier. I think Jamie and myself both drove past him this morning. I had his tracks heading towards the treehouse waterhole, where we had a quick look around but didn't come up with anything. But maybe Wium's eagle eyes, who's on camera behind me this afternoon, will aid in the process of finding him. He very often finds leopards or their tracks. And it's been wonderful to see how all the cameramen have developed into fully fledged guides, knowing all the tricks of the trade. And you're right, they are quite relentless predators, and because they are often predating young or helpless animals like chicks or even eggs before to the parents out here, mainly the birds. But the interesting thing is even small birds will ferociously attack and mob reptiles like that. Even squirrels and snakes will be bombarded as soon as the word has got out that there's a thief in the area. The birds will all chitter and chatter, calling in more birds. And it was this time last year that we actually got to see quite a brutal sighting of where the hunter became the hunted. And that was at the Jeandre waterhole camera, where a young African rock python, it was probably only about this long, newly born. They born at around 45 centimeters, or hatch at around 45 centimeters. Anyway, this young African rock python obviously thought it was onto a great plan when it came across the weaver's nests at the Jeandre waterhole, and it was probably slithering about trying to check the nests for any young chicks to feed on, but it was detected and the weavers started obviously flying into it and trying to knock it out the tree, which they must have successfully done. But its tail, about an inch from the end of its tail, it got hooked on one of the hook thorns of the acacia tree, and it was dangling head down, and there was too much weight for it to pick itself back up onto one of the branches, so it couldn't get unhooked. And it was just a sitting target that the weavers relentlessly flew and pecking it on the head until eventually it died. So even for the predators out there, you do need to be cautious. I guess the same applies for lion and leopard when hunting dangerous animals like buffalo or even zebra. I guess for a leopard, they can turn on their predators and teach him a lesson. So we are getting into the area and his brother, called Quarantine. And it's quite nice that he was actually found in and around Treehouse waterhole this morning, because that was one of his local hangouts where we saw him more than anywhere else. That was, of course, before the tree. Just driven past the water pump that you may have heard chugging away, that gets water up to our camp from a borehole. Question through from Ruth in Northern Ireland. Good to have you on board, Ruth. And I haven't mentioned the differences between the rock monitor and the water monitor, and that's what Ruth would like to know. Basically, the rock monitor doesn't rely on water, so you often find it in dry, open, wooded areas, whereas water monitors are always found in and around water. In terms of appearance, the water monitor's head isn't as robust and as big as the rock monitor, and they tend to have brighter coloration. So the rock monitor's a little bit drab in color, lighter in color, whereas the water monitors, especially when they're young, have got beautiful yellow dots and markings on them. And if there was more water around at the moment, I think we would have a good chance of showing you the water monitors. There used to be quite a few slithering about at the treehouse waterhole, although I did see a youngster at the Jeandre waterhole not too long ago, I don't think. Well, this is going to be interesting for a lot of you. On our right, you will see a large tree that's been pushed over. And behind this tree is the den site where the clan of hyena used to spend a lot of time before their most recent den that was found up on Aubrey's Road by Jamie. And as I drive around this den, I'm sure a lot of you will remember it, but the elephants have been doing some serious deforestation at the moment. I guess even now that I've just crept a little bit into the gap, you may notice the familiar mound and burrows where we were lucky enough to watch this, the youngest of the hyena cubs. This was the first den he was seen at. He was just a little black ball of fur then. And I've just spotted an interesting bird slightly off to the right in the ground. I haven't shown you one of these for quite some time. You can actually hear it calling. Listen carefully. Are you talking to yourself, or do you have some friends here? Oh, look at that! That was awesome. Serious little stunt work there. Maybe he's looking for some friends. He's certainly trying to communicate with something or someone. Babies to be made amongst not only the birds, but a lot of the mammals will be giving birth, the reptiles. It is the time to see the young and cute. Not too many yet though. Cute. Not too many. Again, well done to Wium. He's not only become a fully fledged guide in terms of his knowledge, but he's also a technical wizard who helps us troubleshoot a lot of the problems we get along the way. And as we came out, sorry Wium, good idea. This is, I should show the other end of this tree. Crazy. Well, there were one or two more, Franklin. You can see how they're sweating, or not, rather than sweating, panting. So it wasn't losing its mind. And big thanks to Gary, who enjoyed reminiscing about the story of a lot of sightings. So much happens here that it's hard to keep track of everything, Gary. But glad you enjoyed that, and we're going to send you off to Jamie for an update on what she's up to. I think she may have something exciting up her sleeve, and we're going to continue on, look for a bird's nest that we think we found earlier, and we'll be sure to call you if we find it.
While Scott looks for his bird nest, we have found yet another fairly flat predator, and this one sits right at the top of the food chain. As you can see, we are with some very flat Birmingham boys. 5 of them are here, but at the moment we've only really got a clear them on Voyatella at main access. A couple of days ago. Nobody actually witnessed it, so it remains unconfirmed, but I think it is. I've said this morning, I think that there's probably about a 10% chance that one of the younger males. You can see he's still got that mohawk. He's only just past that. As you can see, he's still got that mohawk. He's only just past that sub-adult stage. Oh, it has obviously been quite the exhausting day for them. Takes quite a lot out of you if you're a male lion lying in the shade. They do actually expend tremendous amounts of energy when they do actually do things. For example, rolling over, having a bit of a stretch, possibly exposing their bellies to the nice cool breeze. Cooling down. Interesting discussion we had while I've been chatting a little bit about their somewhat ends that are starting to only just really grow in. For the rest of the afternoon, because there is a chance we might be seeing a nice comparison. It's interesting how male lions have evolved to have big fluffy manes to help protect them in fights with other males, guarding against bites to some of the more crucial parts of the throat. Oh, so many yawns. One can actually precede getting up and moving slightly, although in this case I think the yawn was just a yawn. Often if you watch them, if they start to yawn and then lick their feet as well, it seems to be preparation for the energy to lift themselves up and head off. Oh, another one. What are you thinking about, boy? Cleaning apparently is top of the list. No, I was chatting about the fact that they don't look like they've expended a lot of energy, but it takes a tremendous amount out of them when they do go hunting, and these boys are renowned buffalo killers. A lot. I'm talking anything from 5 to 10 to 20 kilometers in patrolling their territorial boundaries. It's something that these territory in this area are going to have to patrol it regularly, call regularly. When the Birmingham boys are around, it means that they get the lion's share of the kills that they make. And they will become, in return, the new protectors of this area. I love the way they hug themselves. The Birminghams have become notorious in this region. They've also now gained the name of the Gowrie males. because there are 5 of them and they're big boys. But of course, they still have a about them at the time that they were really dominant around this area. That was sort of 2008, around that area. I heard about them, I never saw them. I would have loved to have. I have of all times, I suppose, just in terms of the fact that there were 6 of them and they caused such a tremendous amount of upset in the area in the beginning before settling down to become the dominant pride members. And as far as I know, it was pretty much the first time. I chatted a little bit about this morning, about the fact that because there were 6 of them, they ended up establishing an absolutely enormous territorial area. It was roughly half or even more of the area of the Sabi Sands, which is where we are now. It was roughly half or even more of the area of the Sabi Sands, which is where we are now. And eventually that led to them splitting up. Which is where we head to, just because we've been rather spoiled with the action that's happening on Arathusa at the moment. Our stations, what is the okay, copy that, if that's right. Okay, copy that. If that's right, I'd like to take standby 1. I'm just with the Birmingham Ngalas on the other side at the moment. It's been an interesting time in the lives of the Birmingham boys, and I'm going to, at some point fairly soon, try and reposition so we can see the other 2. About 3 days ago, we had them sitting around them just to the north of the dam, and they were with a female. And Laura Craft, you were wondering if we ever identified who it was, and unfortunately not. She disappeared off fairly quickly. We were sitting in the middle of quarantine. In one moment. What are you going to... I think he's just moving to a deeper patch of shade. Might even go... Found a nice patch of shade with a little bit more in the way of company. That female disappeared off across quarantine around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and we never really had a good look at her. And we think that she is the one that wound up at Arathusa Dam that evening. I don't know if you were watching when we had Shadow and the viewers pointed out that they'd seen a female wandering across the dam on her own. I think because of the area she's moving around in, I'm trying to guess. I suspect it's either an Nkuhuma or a Styx. My inclination is to go with Styx female, just because she headed back towards the southern area of Arathusa. But that is guesswork. It is not confirmed. Oh, looking very sleepy. Another big yawn. And I really want this particular individual to have a look. If he could turn his head, I know that Ellen and many others are always on the lookout for Scrapper. I think this is him. He's also sometimes known as Tokolosh, which is also a very fitting name. And I chatted a lot about him this morning, about the fact that despite being probably one of the youngest members of this coalition, he is the one that has acted possibly with the coalition. He is the one that has acted possibly with the most boldness. He was the male that carried the cub around, the Styx cub. He, despite being one of the youngest members, actually showed a great deal of aggression, and I think Scrapper's quite similar. I also had a chat with Scott a couple of days ago about the increase of testosterone levels. We're looking at him now, and he looks so peaceful and almost harmless with his mane that is not quite past the sub-adult stage. He's called Scrapper for a reason. He had that big black eye. Oh, look at those teeth. Maybe not so harmless. And the reason why he's also sometimes known as Tokolosh, the mystical African being, a tiny man that wanders around and steals children from their beds in traditional folklore. And he's quite a scary character in local culture here. So Tokolosh, because of the personality that he has developed. He's sniffing something. He smelt something. Lifting his head into the wind. I'm going to try and reposition, get a slightly better view for everybody. They have tucked themselves down in the guarri bushes, and whilst I do that, I'll keep an eye out for the other two, including the eldest member, whose name is slightly easier to understand. He's sometimes known as Blondie. When you see his very light blonde mane, that's quite easy to imagine where that particular name came from. Copy, thanks very much. Confirm buff cam. Copy that, thank you. Change of plan. We'll be back with the Birminghams later. We've got another animal to go and see. And it's an animal that's fairly in demand, so we're going to go now. You basically touched on what I said, that generally a yawn from a big cat means they're about to move. Larry, you thought maybe they were getting proceeded to move, but it do a little bit of a cheat here to avoid going all the way around. And gap in the ditch. This particular animal while we can. Oh, I want to show you something quickly. On this little plane, or on the tires of this little plane. Now this particular plane is obviously planning on spending the night on the airstrip, and the reason that there are thorn trees packed around it is for two creatures in particular. One is a hyena, the other is a lion. Both of those like to explore the rubber of the pack thorn trees around them. Now personally, I hope that that effort is sufficient to deter the cubs away from our tires before at den sightings. They can be persistent when they want to be. Alright, it gets a bit bumpy here. Alright, it gets a bit bumpy here. Diane, I really thank you for your update. You did exactly as I asked. Apparently the wild dogs have left Arethusa, heading north-northwest away from the dam. Looks as though they're on the hunt. Diane, that's not where I'm heading. Unfortunately, there are still vehicles in that queue. I have a different surprise for you, and it's still special and something you're still going to enjoy. But it is not the wild dogs. We still have to wait for our turn since we did get the first sighting with them. We have to wait now to be right at the back of the queue. Now to be right at the back of the queue. Cheetah, but I don't know which leopard it is. I'm going to give it away. It is a leopard, but I don't know which one it is. Keep your eyes peeled because I also don't know exactly where it is. Oh, never mind. Yes, I do. It's right where the vehicle is. That's fairly easy to see. Jeandre is just going to give us a quick windscreen wipe, as it were. And he's right on the south of our boundary. We just need to make sure that we're on the south of our boundary. We just need to make sure that we're nice and clean so you can all have a really nice look at the animal we're heading across to. Okay, let's figure out the best approach to this sighting. I have my suspicions as to who this might be, but I could be wrong. Okay, perfect, thank you. I'll head that way. Done fair. I'm already feeling substantial amounts of guilt for the first time. The wind has picked up once again. with, as they describe it, the tree house. Wants it to be Mbula. And Chris Rogue, you mentioned that Nkoro had found Tingana. There's our Tingana. How wonderful in the sunset light. Very calmly sitting on it. One break of longer than a couple of days in between pandering to the attentions of the ladies. Unflustered as ever. How are you? Good, thanks. Any sign of them are fuzzy? No, he managed to escape. Look at the size of him. I never ever fail to get taken aback every time I see Tingana. Just the sheer bulk that he carries. Now, I said to you to think about the fact that lions have manes. Tingana happens to have a spectacular dewlap, that big flap of skin and muscle in the front of his neck, and it serves essentially the same purpose. It also means that a leopard like this could drag a tree, holding it in your teeth and with only your claws to hold you up. And then just imagine the amount of strength that a cat like this shows. It's making everything feel just that little bit sleepy this afternoon. But we've certainly been spoilt. But we've seen wild dog, lion and leopard, all within a radius of probably not more than 1.5 kilometers of each other. From Nkoro about Tingana. I'm not sure where Jeandre. But they seem to give the mating process a bit of a break in the heat of the day, and that makes sense. It's not worth expending all of that energy when it's the hottest time. With those beautiful eyes. I think that's because he spotted the wildebeest at the back, but there's also a dwarf mongoose behind us. That is at the moment unaware of his presence. The reason that the females are not falling pregnant. I think it is a combination of factors. I think that with Kwetile, at least, her estrus was a false estrus, and I also personally think that Shadow's first or second estrus would also have been false estrus. And then at this point, it could be that with the excessive mating that he's had to perform, it might be that he is not producing fertile sperm, but I think it's unlikely. I'd have to double check my research in terms of the success rate percentage of leopard mating in fertilization. He's still watching those wildebeest, if you're wondering why he's looking so alert. Now, it's mostly a coincidence that he's had to mate with 3 different females in this area now. I do think that the Anderson male needs to up his game a little bit and help a brother out, so to speak. But no, Donna, they don't all go into estrus at the same time. This is a coincidence, and I think it's a combination of Quatila losing her cubs, Shadow reaching a stage where she was ready to breed again, and then Karula, I think maybe getting slightly old and not as fertile as she used to be. And I think that's all coincided to the point where he's had to meet a great deal about the mating behavior of leopards, as we've been watching. He's also essentially the only big male capable of, or at least dominant, in this area. One thing that did surprise me is that Karula didn't go looking for Mvula, but then again she may have, we just may not have been aware of it. And just looking at him now, you can hardly blame him or blame the ladies for wanting to choose him as their mating opportunity. He is such a handsome boy, and I know that many of you, Lynn and 30-Minute Fitness included, multiple mating opportunities as a way of ensuring the survival of their cubs. But look at those eyes. How can you resist? I'm pretty sure it's my man to be free of his duties for now. Aardvark burrow, and Donna Sudbury, apologies if I mangled the surname pronunciation there, but you were saying, are there no art? Donna is famed, apparently. I have yet to see him in action, but that's because I somehow managed to avoid seeing all aardvarks. But apparently Tingana has a reputation for being a very patient, very skilled aardvark hunter, sometimes lying in ambush to grab hold of an unaware aardvark as it comes out of its burrow. I have yet to see this, and in a way I think it would be quite devastating for my first aardvark sighting in my entire life to be in the clutches of Tingana. I've seen his tracks before, and those massive paws are almost the size, or leave prints that are almost the size of a lioness track. He is not a small cat by any means. He looks so peaceful. His eyes, but he still focuses every now and again on the wildebeest that were moving on the airstrip. They are very far away now. And I think that instinct runs strong in these cats, even though he looks fairly full. I wonder where his lady's hiding and how long he's going to escape her attentions. I bet she's somewhere in this drainage line in the shade. She's gonna be looking for him. She's gonna be looking for him. I need to just have a sip of water. The combination of dust and wind is quite a... I need to just have a sip of water. The combination of dust and wind is quite a... Luckily that water is the temperature of tepid bath water. Making for a very refreshing drink. Theoretically the temperature is around 34 degrees. I don't believe that. I think it's hotter, or at least it was hotter earlier. Now for a leopard like Tingana, just to carry on the theme of the weather and the dryness that we've been experiencing, for a leopard like Tingana and for predators such as the wild dog and the lions, the dry season is going to hit the herbivores very hard. But for these predators, it's going to mean a windfall for them, because essentially the prey becomes concentrated all around the salt water sources in an area, and it means old and the young, and it means that they're going to have plenty of access to prey over the next few months, depending on our rain and what comes our way. Now, both Donna and Raisa have I wouldn't say caught me out, but they've certainly asked questions that I don't know the full explanation behind. Donna, you were wondering who Tingana's parents are, and I cannot tell you anything other than they were probably quite good-looking leopards. Oh. Parents are, and I cannot tell you, quite exhausted. Raisa, you've heard us refer to the fact that Tingana is 9 years old, and you were wondering whether or not, because we is 9 years old, and you were wondering whether or not, because we don't know exactly, or at least he was not known to this area. He came in, as males tend to do, as they disperse away from their natal areas. So how do we know he's 9 years old? Did anybody know him from a cub? Now, you raise a very good point. It's something that I accepted as a given when that information was shared to me by other guides in this area, and I probably should have questioned further. But very interesting. I'll do a little bit of digging and see what I can find out as to where Mr. Tingana came from. I do know that there was a bit of a clash of names in the beginning. There was another female leopard called Tingana in this area, and that resulted in certain confusion. As to where Tingana came from, my guess, given his size, is somewhere to the south of us, quite possibly around the rivers. The genetic line seems to push for bigger leopards in territories that are much more in contention in those areas. But even then, he's still smaller than the Anderson male. So in conclusion, both to Donna and Raisa, I don't know the answer. I'll do some digging. I will see what I can find out. It could be that nobody knew him as a cub, and he was only acquired his name when he started to be known to the Sabi Sands. I mentioned maybe a couple of days ago that the furthest record for the dispersal of a male leopard was from the center of Natal all the way to the Kruger Park, essentially from almost anywhere, although it's more likely he's a Kruger leopard. I'll find out for you, or see if I can find out, and I'm sure that many of you have some of that information at your fingertips as well. So if you know anything more about Tingana's story, please let me know on #SafariLIVE on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And in the meantime, while we're sitting with a flat Tingana, I believe that Scott has some wonderful ellies to complete our fantastic afternoon's viewing. So let's head across to him for now. I will be back with you to continue our wonderful cat moments.
Well, isn't Jamie doing an incredible job this afternoon? Wild dog, lion, and leopard. The good news is we found another animal that I'm not sure you've seen yet this afternoon. Equally as wonderful. And we're just going to loop ahead of this herd quickly now, and we should have you some good visuals shortly. It's a little bit tricky going in this thick bush, so I don't think we're going to loop ahead of them again. We've had no luck in our search for Kunuma while you've been gone, a young male leopard. But the beauty about being on safari is you never know what you're going to bump into. And this breeding herd was moving through the exact area where he was. Look at how cute this is, a mother and what looks to be her young son. Trying to snack on the same little bush there. Oh, it looks like he may give us a bit of attitude here. He's flaring out to snack on the same little bush there. But now he's been distracted by another small little snack. Adults are, although you did a great job there. Yes, you did. Aren't they such wonderful animals, the elephants? Such bizarre shapes, and also ridiculously sized. That car will probably weigh around 4 tons. One last straggler there, just slipping behind the vehicle. Let's see if we can't manage to get you ahead one more time before they drop down into a little riverbed. Who knows, maybe these elephants will help us to determine where exactly Kunuma is with their incredible sense of smell. They could quite easily pick up a sense, and if they do, they will often actually charge after leopard and lion, even though they aren't really predated on by these predators. They still don't really tolerate them. Quite quickly, so I think this is going to be as good as it gets. Yeah. Comes the youngster thinking about another little mock charge. It really is wonderful when they do get a bit ahead of themselves and come trundling up to the vehicles. There's another individual about to pop into your frame. And it's possibly an older sibling of the young calf, because it's also been spending, this teenager you could say, has also been spending the majority of the time quite close to this big cow. So could look at how wonderful this is. The big cow's eyelashes were being illuminated by this. She's got a lot of mud caked on her ears. That's probably from her last mud wallow. I'm not sure where she would have done that, as most of the water holes are drying up, so they're going to have to start really thinking about where they spend their time. Because water is going to play a very large role in where they do decide to search for food. Well, happy to hear that Jeandre agrees that you guys are having a wonderful afternoon so far, with 4 members of the Magnificent 7 already seen. Who knows how many more you will see before the end of the safari. The only 3 you are missing are the cheetah, the rhino, and the buffalo. The rhino you will sadly not be seeing, as even though they occur here, we decide not to give away their locations and the remote chance that it could contribute to poachers gaining info. Anyway, Jeandre, happy you enjoying it, but we're going to rush you back to Jamie. She's got limited time left with Tingana and she wants you guys to enjoy the most of it.
Now, just imagine you're a tiny little mongoose and you pop your head out of your front door in an evening, maybe to catch the last few rays of sun, maybe spend a bit of time foraging, and you look in completely the wrong direction, because about 2 meters behind you is a very sleepy leopard. I think that mongoose is aware of him, but it's still a very interesting image, because he just looks like he's looking in completely the wrong direction. He's busy looking at the vehicles, or for the rest of his, possibly the rest of his family. I think what probably you'll find is that the leopard moved across and lay down on the termite mound, and the mongoose all scattered, and this particular individual, oh shame, squeaking, he raced into a hole as a place of safety and discovered that nobody else had joined him, and he's now trying to reconnect with the rest of his family without racing out of the hole and exposing himself to the attentions of the leopard. Shame. Now, it's great to have viewers sending through questions, and we've got one from Chantal, who's watching us in England. Chantal, you wanted to know at which age leopards are considered to be seniors, so how long do they live in the wild? And he would definitely be approaching what I wouldn't call him senior. I'd say that he's right in his prime. He's in the really mature, dominant age of a leopard at about 9 years old. And they can live anywhere up to 21 years in the wild, but the average is probably quite a bit lower than that. So we're talking in the region of 13, 14, 15. And you'll find most likely the females will live longer. So they, in terms of dog age and senior age, for big dogs their size, they live a little bit longer. Well, actually it would be a very big dog that was the size of Tingana. They're a little bit longer lived than those large breeds of dogs, but they approach their senior years at around, I would say, into the around 11 to 15 would be a senior leopard, which is what Karula is currently approaching. And as I said, the males probably have slightly shorter lifespans than the females in the wild because of the degree of competition. Territorial battles between males tend to be a lot fiercer. Now, the one thing about the fact that Arathusa has been an amazingly active place at the moment is that a lot of these sightings are in demand. There are other people waiting to enter this leopard sighting, so it's time for us to leave him. And if there's space for us to come back, then we will. We're still waiting for a turn to go to the wild dogs once again. I'll let you know if that is likely to happen. At the moment, there's still quite a few vehicles waiting to move in there. Alrighty, I'll take your last few screenshots of a beautiful Tingana sleeping on the termite mound, framed by the setting sun. With his tummy in that dip that Christine suggests it almost looks like he dug that hole for his large tummy. And Christine, he does certainly find himself a comfortable spot with a nice hollow for his belly, but leopards are good at that. Doesn't matter where you find a leopard sleeping, they always look incredibly comfortable. Well, thank you, beautiful boy, for your time on this beautiful African evening. It's time for us to go and head out and see where we end off. Turn around here, as well as let the guys know that we are pulling out of the leopard sighting. Stations are leaving lock of Medora Ingwe, 2 vehicles on lock, 1 approaching. Beautiful setting to have a beautiful leopard sighting, and Tingana really is I think, but I'm biased, but I think he's the best looking of a good looking bunch. I really think he is quite stunning. I still haven't seen the Anderson male though. We'll have to wait for that particular privilege. It seems as though the Anderson has been pushed quite far into the west. I did get an amazing picture that was shared of the Anderson male and Salayeshe and Salayeshe's female cub. Salayeshe is a female that's on the other side of Arathusa around Elephant Plains. She's the dominant female there, and she's got a female cub who's only a couple of months old. Good timing that we left when we did, because I think there's another vehicle sitting waiting for their chance to come into our leopard sighting. Now, as I do a loop around the airstrip, I'm just going to have a look and see who's with the Birmingham boys at the moment. My word, we're spoiled for sightings today. This place has been full of action. We'll go and see what those Birminghams are up to. They're very, very close as the crow flies, but we do have to do a bit of a loop around them. I just want to show you something quickly. I don't know if you can see it. There's a The consequences, we don't always see this in a thick vegetated area, but we've got a nice open space here. And the consequences of a buffalo herd moving through an area. The buffalo herd, breeding herd, was only here for a couple of hours. And without focusing too closely, you can see evidence of their deposits. And for an area like this that's nice and open without much grass cover, it's a perfect state, or in a perfect state for the beginnings of erosion. There's just not a lot of plant material here to help hold down the soil when it starts to rain. And that little bit of buffalo dung has a very, very high moisture content, as well as plenty of nutrients, much like manure. Oh, that's a spectacular sky. And it's just an example of how big herds can benefit as well as damage areas, depending on how they use them. Look at that sunset. Oh, that blaze of an outline around the clouds. You've heard the expression, every cloud has a silver lining. It seems like my experience of sunsets in Africa, every cloud has a golden lining. Stunning afternoon. Just sitting, listening to the tones of the Birchall starling, as well as the approaching vehicle who wants to be able to get to Tingana. So we might have to move off the road a bit sooner than I would like. Oh, okay, he's giving us a wide berth very kindly. All right. I'm going to go and head across, see if we can get back to the lions. There are a couple of people who are waiting to see them, so we might have to wait our turn again. We've been very lucky this afternoon. We've skipped most of the queues. I know that many of you I know that buffalo pan that they might come and enjoy, but you could see the return of our leopards. That's buffalo pan. Luckily has a bit of water. A couple more days like this and that will be gone as well. Just bear with me one moment. We can't go straight back to the lions at the moment. There are other vehicles making their way, but I want to find out what's happening with those wild dogs. make our way back towards the Birminghams. The sights that the scenery has to offer. It's something that I've mentioned to a lot of the regular viewers before, something that I always force myself to do. The sights that the scenery has to offer. It's something that I've mentioned to a lot of the regular viewers before, something that I always force myself to do. Not force myself, force is the wrong word, but sometimes you get so caught up in the frenetic pace that can exist out here, where you rush from sighting to sighting and you're desperately looking for an animal. It's sometimes nice to just sit and watch the sun go down and really just get that sense of peace and the expanse of the environment that you're in, this enormous place that is the perfect example of a wild area. We won't be heading to the Birmingham Boys. There are other vehicles there, and there are a couple more waiting to enter the sighting as well. Sunset to watch, and Lynn, you are absolutely right. We can sit and watch the sunsets, and I know when I go to take pictures of them, it never really truly captures the magnificence of it. But we're so lucky at WildEarth to have the gifted cameraman such as Jeandre, who is filming that sunset, who are able to reproduce the wonders that we see and share them all the way across the world. Jeffrey, you're watching all the way in Texas. I'm sorry there's no cheetah, but I'm glad that you have enjoyed the drive nonetheless. It has been it's actually been a spectacular few days. We've been incredibly lucky with our sightings, and it makes being out here so exciting. You just never know what your day is going to bring. But the sunset safari is not over, Jeffrey. We could come around the corner and bump into a cheetah. Unlikely, but we could. But the sunset safari is not over, Jeffrey. We could come around the corner and bump into a cheetah. Unlikely, but we could. That's the joy of the live safari, is that you just never know what's going to turn up when. That beautiful view of Tingana stretched out across the termite mound. And Penny, you were wondering how long his tail is, and the answer is almost 2/3 of his body length. So it's close to 2 meters long, or about a meter. They stalk and move through an area. That extra is oh so important in all that leopards do, both from balancing to pouncing to climbing trees and providing what I'm looking for. I was going with seesaw, but that wasn't exactly right. Alright, got a free spot on the Game Drive channel to talk. You have to line up to talk on the Game Drive channel, let alone see the animals this afternoon. There's just so much going on. Our stations, what are the position of the Madach at the moment? Okay, copy. Just to confirm, they've all crossed, or just some of them? some of them. Copy that, thanks. What's the standby position for those bunt ones? Copy that. Message to Scott, and I'm not sure if he's received. A lot of the family members have crossed onto Juma from Zebra Drive. Have crossed onto Juma. Now, I'm not sure what Scott is up to at the moment and how things are going on his side. But once I get a little bit closer, then I'll be able to convey that message on the Game Drive channel. Is there a bush baby there? Oh, Jeandre spotted a bush baby. I did not even see it. Which way did it go? Jumping in the bushes. Oh, that's a pity. Sorry, Jeandre. I didn't even see it. I was concentrating on thoughts of wild dogs. Oh. Let's see if I'll go nice and slowly. Let's see if we can spot it. It's not often we get to see them during the day, but we will. It seems as though Scott is now on the wild dog from our side and go and have a look at what the pups are up to. And hopefully, if they do get up and start moving, then they will in fact lead us to the adults. And put foot a little bit as we drive along here. Two beautiful male Inyala. I'm not stopping for long though. I just wanted to show you them. Stunning big males. Sorry, Inyala. Not that we don't really appreciate you, but this afternoon has been all go from our side. Just along Zebra. The adults. Alrighty, well,
biggest rush we've been in this afternoon. Initially, Wium and I were racing off in the opposite direction as there was a report of a pack of wild dogs coming into the property. And by the time we got there, the wild dogs had already come in, crossed over one of the roads into a very big block. So their tracks, and we were busy looping around the big block that they are in now. Some at the Jeandre waterhole, so just up ahead of us. We'll be there in about 30 seconds or so, and I don't want to take any chance because it won't be the first leopard that sneaks away from us after having. I'm going to just make sure there's no wild dogs running through the quarantine clearings now. They were heading in this direction and they move incredibly quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if this wild dog sighting doesn't converge on the leopard sighting. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Yeah. And within a few seconds we should be with this leopard. I wonder who it is. I'm guessing either Karula, a female leopard, or her son called Kunyuma, who's been lurking back in this area after having spent quite a lot of time away from us. Okay. Well, we're in luck. And the leopard's just up ahead of us, and we're going to get you some views of it shortly. Thank you so much to all of you guys that got us into this fortunate position. It looks like Karula to me, and Wium's just going to level off the camera and then zoom you in for a closer look. This is going to be beautiful. And from what I've heard, she's already been here for quite some time, quenching her thirst. And it's been an incredibly hot day, so I don't blame her. And again, like I was saying a bit earlier on in the elephant sighting, there's not much water around at the moment. So all of the animals really do need to make the most of their opportunities for drinking. And this is absolutely spectacular. What a beautiful view. Now, what may be the case, if we're lucky, is that she may have abandoned a carcass that she may be feeding on just to come and have a drink, and may lead us back to that. That would be great if we know where she's got a kill. Or another variable is that she could head off and go hunting, and we could try and follow her. That would be probably more fun than returning simply to a kill that she's already made. This is actually the only leopard that we've actually managed to successfully film making a kill. And that's in 1 year of filming. Only one leopard kill has been captured. So it's not something we see very often. Where are you going to go, Karula, with your muddied chin? And there's some magical light being cast onto her now. The sun has already set, but there's this kind of ambient glow. Oh, now that body language indicates to me that she's seen something possibly tasty. I'm just trying to look behind the vehicle and work out exactly what it is that she's seen. Well, at first glance, I actually can't see anything. But you'll find her eyesight's probably a little better than mine. Listen carefully. You may be able to pick up the faint call of a hyena that's calling in the distance. It just let off one or two soft whoops. Whoop. Now it's getting a bit louder. You may just be able to pick up that audio. She's looking back in the direction of those hyena calls now. I've got a feeling she's going to call. I don't know why, if it's just the way she's holding her body or her posture. And wouldn't that be wonderful if we did hear her letting off her loud rasping call? Not yet though. It may happen in a short while. And we're just going to reposition the vehicle and try and get you some new views. Looks like I've been for a perm. I've been driving so quickly this afternoon. My afro is standing on end. She could actually take a slip road between the lodge and the owner of this lodge's house. It's a bit of a thin alleyway which will also take her straight past Jerry and Nikki. Oh, she's scent marking now, and I wish you could smell the popcorn scent that I'm picking up. It smells just like buttered popcorn. She's just kind of holding her pose for longer than normal, but she's already finished her scent mark there. I'll quickly get out my camera and see if I can fire off a few snaps of her as she moves along. What I am going to do is just try and get up ahead of her though. She has seen something up ahead yet, maybe in this undergrowth just in front of us. There's a lot of bushbuck and Nyala that hang around this area of Djuma, so there could well be some prey here for her. Let's just stop here and see what she does. And Donna Miller, you've just made a very good comment, and that is that she doesn't look very full-bellied. So the chance of her taking us back to kill, there's another scent mark. Usually 2 or 3 sprays per scent mark. You may have caught the first 2, and now she's just kind of holding that pose for longer than normal. We're going to rush you back to Jamie. She's got some action.
Very quick link. To rip you away, but the adults have just rushed back to the pups, and I had to get to show you this greeting ceremony. The pups all shot off at one go and went racing to see their parents. Stop here. Hello guys. So the adults that had disappeared off into Djuma returned to the pups, and the pups went dashing across to say hello, exuberantly happy to see the adults back once again. all of those ears. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 pups that I count at the moment. They're such perfect little miniatures of their parents. Here they all come trotting towards us. Now they're essentially walking under the car. As you can see, they are more than comfortable with our presence. Hello, little ones. What's up? Look at that beautiful face. Oh, found a stick. Quite a half-hearted attempt to play. Found another one. Nope, that one doesn't make the cut either. Big yawn. And I'm thinking that they might be, or might want to spend the night somewhere in this area. They're going to find a good spot to bed down. There's a lot of round looking bellies, so they definitely don't look starving, but they could have eaten. They do look like they might have wanted some dinner, but I think it's getting a little bit late to that. Now, I am sorry to have rushed you away from your wonderful leopard sighting. The reason I did that is because this will be our last few moments with these pups. You absolutely do not spotlight wild dogs. They're daytime animals, and if you do that, you run the risk of endangering them to attack from lion and leopard. And with so much happening around on Arethusa, never fear, they are a safe distance away from the Birmingham boys, but we want that to stay that way, and we certainly don't want to compromise any of their senses by spotlighting them. So these will be our last few moments with this pack before it's time to go. And as it happens, I think they might be disappearing up further into the bush. Look at those beautiful colors. Lots of screenshots, please, everybody. We're always looking for pictures of their left-hand sides. It's the sort of standard identifying spot. Jeandre, are there any pups directly underneath us or close to us? I'm just going to check, just in case. I'm going to reposition, but I thought I'd... They're clear. Okay, perfect. Obviously, as soon as I started the engine, we would have scared them off, but I don't want to run the risk of scaring any of them. One last look at the majority of the family, and then we will say goodbye to our wild dogs and head back across to Scott and Karula. Jeandre is keeping a close eye out for me. We'll stop here, show our beautiful pups one last time, and then head back across to Scott and Karula. What a spectacular afternoon this has been. Some of them still almost look a bit wobbly on their legs. We raced you across in this direction because the parents were returning, and I mentioned that in this particular pack we have the rare circumstance where both the alpha and the beta female have bred and produced a litter of surviving puppies. Now, I know that Raisa, you were wondering if both the alpha and the betas were hunting for the pups. Yes, they were, absolutely. They had left one young female in charge of the puppies and disappeared off. I imagine that Little spindly pups like this are a bit of a hindrance if you want to go racing after prey and not have to worry about them. Now, as you can see, it's getting dark and very thick in there. And so I think it's time for us to say goodbye to a very special wild dog pack. Beautiful male. And hopefully we will be able to catch up with them more in the future now that they've left the den. But definitely a memorable experience for all of us. I'm going to leave them now to their nightly excursions. They're probably going to find a nice thick patch of bush. And while... Oh! That's definitely one of the alphas. Pulling his weight around. Okay. Most of them have disappeared from view. I know that Scott is still with Karula, so let's head back across to him and his Queen of Jeandre.
Now that satellite's the satellite that sends the final pictures to you. Oh my word! And that was a bushbuck barking that Karula just tried to pounce onto. She's just in this thick bush in front of us. There's final control where Nikki and Jeandre are sitting. Can you believe this action unfolding literally right in front of our office? Here she comes. Just a few meters past our vehicle. Absolutely awesome. Can you believe how lucky we are to be allowed this kind of an insight into such a usually shy and solitary animal? Well, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? So, we are now going to continue. The girls did rush out of final control just for a moment or two. Can you blame them? Of course not, and I urge them to stop everything they were doing to get a glimpse of this leopard walking straight past their office. She just crossed over now this little road to our right, and we're going to have to hurry along. She likes a pathway that takes her along the perimeter of the camp that she quite often uses. So just going to sneak around here, a little bit more racing around. And this is the main access road down to Wium and Gallagher, the two Jeandre camps, and she's going to walk straight in front of the entrance gate to these two camps. Seem to be following the fence line just yet, which means she may cross over. A little bit further away from the fence and up to our right over here. I can't believe how close she was to that bushbuck. Incredible. And the girls in FC got a huge fright when that bushbuck did alarm call. They didn't realize that that bark was so loud. There was a very big electrified fence between the girls and the leopard and the bushbuck, though, just to let everyone know that. It wouldn't have been wise just to get them to come out and have a squiz if that wasn't the case. Where are you, Karula? Unless, of course, she's caught wind of another bushbuck. Right here. Just going to turn the vehicle around. In anticipation for her arrival. Leopards, especially Karula, are known to change their course of trajectory and Kona ingwe hapo. I was just letting Isaac, the maintenance guy, know that there's a leopard about. He was walking along the same very fence that I was expecting Karula to walk along. Thankfully though, these predators, even though they can potentially be deadly to us, there she goes, just across the road in front of us. She just shot across the road. She was trotting after something. So obviously on the trail of another... Sorry, this car doesn't have any dim lights, which is not leaving me with many options here, but I don't want to leave the brights on. This is another pathway that she very often uses, and this is the same pathway that the girls walk along to final control every afternoon and morning. Now, I don't want to shine the lights on it too much. Because if there is some potential prey, I don't want to give away her position. Interestingly enough, this is the first place that I actually also saw Karula on my first morning here at Jeandre. I think it was on the 23rd of November last year when I got to see her, and she had an impala kill. I'm just going to show you where that kill was and then loop ahead quickly. She had an impala kill in this tree, just dangling on that branch over there. It was a baby impala, one of the newborns, and she was actually at the base of the tree when I saw her. And a very pleasant way to be back in the Sabi Sands after being away from this area for about 2.5 or 3 years. You don't get many better leopard viewing areas than this in the whole of Africa. Now these fences that you can see are merely in and around the camp here at Jeandre, so it's keeping guests and children who belong to staff members safe at night and even during the day. So, Rocky Fella, those are the fences you are seeing. The animals have free rein other than these small islands which keep us humans safe from them. Although having said that, I have seen Karula sneak in under the fence straight into the camp before. Now, what this means, this area that we're in, is that it's very difficult to follow her. Oh, here she comes. And I thought she may have ducked out elsewhere. I'm just going to reposition the vehicle one more time, sorry. It's going to be worthwhile. Now we are literally right outside the camp where all of the Jeandre staff stay, and we also stay very close by, and here she comes straight towards us. You will see the fence that she's walking along very shortly. There she goes, just meters away from it. What a beautiful animal. And aptly scent marking right outside. Now she's going to head down. This is the route to our house, our accommodation, that she's busy heading towards now. And this is very important to remember, that she's not tame. She's a wildcat, but she's realized that we as humans don't actually pose a threat to her. So she doesn't mind coming into our environs. And I've actually known leopards in the Sabi Sands to prefer spending time around camps, especially when they've got young cubs to look after, because it's much safer in a camp than outside of it. Most other predators can't make their way into the camp area because of the fence and because they do not want to be around us, but leopards understand that it's actually a potential safe haven where that they can leave their cubs out of harm's way. What's interesting is that even though leopards are animals of vague habit, they won't always use the same pathway, but this is a pathway that she very often uses. And the last time I was tracking her, she was following the same to where we stay, which I'll point out to you right now. So this is the entrance to our house over here. Can you believe it? And she's just passed meters by in front of us. Now, because she clearly is hunting, and I think there could be some bushbuck in this area for her to hunt. They usually hang out outside Wium's bedroom every night, the bushbuck. I don't want to disadvantage her or advantage the bushbuck by shining the spotlight on her. So I think we are going to be leaving her as she continues from here. There's clearly something that's got her attention up ahead. And I'm thinking of actually making our way out right now. We've had such great views of her. And as soon as it becomes dark, the only way to film effectively is to have night vision where we're not going to impact on the scenario and either help or disadvantage either of the animals involved. So time to say goodbye to Karula, the Queen of Jeandre, and we are going to head off in search of some other interesting animals. It is night time now. We could find some bush babies. It's easier to spot chameleons now, and she's clearly intent on something. So our options are either to switch off and sit here and wait in silence, and all you'll get to do is watch me, and then if she does catch something, then we can race in and have a closer look. But failing that, it would be unwise for us to stick around and kind of not very thoughtful on our behalf. So we've had a great sighting. Let's try and be as less intrusive to these animals as possible, and that way we'll continue to be spoiled by them and be allowed such close views and such great views of them. Whereas if we start interfering with their lives, they will start acting otherwise, understandably. She's now continued on and is pacing down the road. There's no ways the camera's going to be able to show you that, but you'll have to take my word for it, and I just want to leave her to do her business, and we'll carry on and see what else we can find. The area she's heading into is also a very tricky area, or impossible area, to drive a vehicle. Oh, I think I can smell our dinner cooking. It smells very good, actually.
Yeah.
Well, Donna and Bull have noticed that our gate is wide open, and you're right. After dark, it's mainly hyena that we want to keep out, as well as elephants. I made a kind of bush gym the other day and hung up a little wooden pole off a branch of a tree that I was going to be doing my exercise on, a pull-up bar. And the very next morning I came in and we had forgot to close the gates, and an elephant had ripped down this massive branch off which my pull-up bar was hanging. I wasn't very impressed. Paul Rizzo. Paul Rizzo is wondering if Karula is the size of a North American cougar. I don't have the faintest idea of how big a North American cougar is, Paul, but she's about 80 pounds. Between 80 and 100 pounds would be her weight, which is just a guess. The only way to be certain would be, of course, to weigh her. But I would guess, yeah, about 40 or 50 kilograms, but I'm leaning closer towards 40, so around 80 pounds. So if you don't mind letting us know, Paul, how heavy your North American cougars are, just so that we all know. What you'll find, Paul, is that leopards, even within the same country, even within South Africa, may vary greatly in size depending on the area that you find them in. There's been some female leopards that have been recorded at no more than 20 to 25 kilograms, which is 40 to 50 pounds. So you get some very, very small leopards, not only in South Africa, but in varying parts of Africa, and you also get some massive ones. So I guess, again, if we look at ourselves as humans as a species, there's many different shapes and sizes. And it's the same for all the animals on the continent, really. Karula has been doing a lot of mating recently, evidently unsuccessfully. We're not sure whether it's the male's fault or the female's or her fault. But Kathy in Tennessee would like to know, when a female leopard like Karula does come into season, will she make the first male that she comes across, or will she seek out specific males? And I think a combination of the two, Kathy, but she certainly will be seeking out certain males because she knows that only the father of her cubs, or male leopards that think they are the father of her cubs, will tolerate them. So if her territory is on the buffer zone of two male leopards, which is quite possible, so two male leopards' territories may overlap one female's much smaller territory, and then it would be in her best interest to mate with both, and she'll know that. So depending on whichever is closest by, she'll mate with first, and then quite often seek out the second one, possibly even a third, in order to ensure her cubs have a greater likelihood of not being killed by any leopard who does not feel that he is her cubs' fathers. So I hope that makes sense, Kathy. There's no strict rules though, and I guess every mating situation and every female leopard is difficult. In terms of research, that's certainly what we've come up with. There's no conclusive set pattern to leopards mating. We should poke our nose down here and see if we can't find any sign of Karula's son, called Konyuma. He was seen lurking about in this general area at about midday. And Jamie is also searching in this general area. She's just a little bit further south of us now at Treehouse Dam. And why don't you guys jump onto her vehicle for an update to see how her Konyuma hunt is going, and hopefully we'll meet you somewhere along the way.
For the last few moments of our sunset safari, both Scott and myself are scouring the area for Mr. Konyuma, who played games with me this morning as I was trying to track him. I'm at Treehouse Dam at the moment. This is where, it's around the area where I was tracking him. I went to look for him this morning at Treehouse Dam, and he kindly waited about 2 hours before making his appearance here for somebody else. But you never know, he might have headed back here. It's a perfect time of evening for a leopard to come and have a quick drink at the muddy puddle that is all that is left of Treehouse Dam. Taking a shortcut across the dam so we can check all of the nooks and crannies on the edges, as well as the trees, because on hot days like today, there's a chance that a leopard will seek the cool shade up in the boughs and the branches to just get a little bit above the baking soil. And it really does feel like on days like today, when you get to the evening time, you can feel the earth releasing its heat. It just radiates upwards. And it's hard to believe that, I think it was probably about 3 days ago, I wouldn't say I was moaning, but I think that depends on whose perspective that you're looking at it from. I was definitely talking quite a bit about how freezing cold I was and how it didn't feel anything like it in summer. Well, it certainly does now. Wium has been hanging out around this area. I hear, of course, it is before my time working for WildEarth and driving these roads, but I do hear that this is where he liked to be when he was a little bit younger and just gaining independence from Karula. Apparently he spent a lot of time around Treehouse Dam area. I also feel for some reason in the excitement of all of the afternoon, my booster seat of blankets has shifted ever so slightly, creating a minor lean off to the left. So if you see me straining back to the right, it's because I'm about to fall down. We'll struggle on for the last few moments. Come on, Wium. I'm so desperate to see Wium properly. I've heard so much about him and what a character he is and how entertaining he can be. And I've only had the very briefest of visuals of him, having spent one entire morning tracking him. Either way, what a spectacular afternoon it has been. We really have been spoiled with those sightings. As we drove away from that wild dog sighting, the rest of the adults were racing back towards the pups. Didn't look like they'd made a kill, they were just on their way back to spend the night together, tucked away in the bush somewhere. But it was still amazing to move through with all of our lights off and just hear the greeting squeaks and squeals of the puppies and the adults as they greeted each other. I'm going to go, as one last resort, I'm going to head towards our old hyena den. It was the active hyena den when I started working here. We'll go and have a look there. Spotted something, but I think it is just an impala or a steenbok, but either way I'm going to speed up a little bit. Let's go see what that is. Oh, no. Definitely a hapless antelope. Oh, whoops. I didn't even know you could do that on Jigger. Sorry, Bookie. That was completely unintentional. I was just trying to dim my lights. Well, there you go. It's nice to know. Oh, elephant. Didn't mean to hoot at the elephant either. Sorry, Ellies. It's nice to know that our vehicles are still fully functioning. And if we ever need to use the horn or the hooter, it is there. Learn something new every day. I wasn't really expecting to learn how to use the horn on Jigger though, and certainly didn't intend to hoot at the wildlife. Sorry everybody. I'm not sure how many of you were watching my interview drive when I was interviewing for this position at WildEarth, but it was one of the very first sightings of the Styx cubs, and I accidentally hooted at them. Instead of pressing and unlocking the immobilizer, I pressed the wrong button and promptly hooted at the lions. And there was a distinct feeling of mortification at that point. You can imagine if you put yourself in my shoes, interviewing for a new job at a wildlife show, and then you promptly hooted the wildlife. You can imagine the feeling of mortification that accompanied it. Well, quite an incredible afternoon. Now, we spent so much time with a wild dog pack that I have never ever seen before today, and that is apparently, as confirmed by the people working in research of the wild dog packs around here, by Grant himself, that was the Sands half-tailed pack, numbering 21 animals. Incredible to see. I've never seen so many wild dogs in one pack. It was so exciting. I can't even put it into words, and I'm so glad I was able to share that moment with all of you. And then, of course, our time spent with the Birmingham boys, as well as the very lucky Tingana, who has managed to escape the attentions of Shadow for the moment. He will, I'm sure she's going to find him at some point during the evening. Just looping around the old hyena den, which has been significantly shaped by the elephants, but we'll show you that some other time. Definitely doesn't look the same as the last time I was here. Well, it has been a wonderful evening. I'm going to stop here for the moment and just say goodbye and farewell to all of you. And a big thank you to Jeandre for his fantastic camera work, and I'm really, really sorry about the tree. I'm glad that Jeandre has pretty much escaped unscathed. Well, have a wonderful day or evening, bolstered by a fantastic sunset safari, and we will head across to Scott for the last few moments of our brilliant evening. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Cheers for now.
So, no luck with Kunyuma yet, but the safari isn't quite over. Wium and I have come to one of our favorite roads, a memorable road for us because
Right, this is the lighting.
And continue to talk for the rest of the evening. We have only a couple of moments left in our sunset safari. Unfortunately, Scott cannot say goodbye to you all. He's just run out of signal, that last final stand of the gremlins that have been attacking Wendy today. So we'll do one more circuit of our hyena den, and I will say goodbye to you all on Scott's behalf as well as my own. So we've still got a little bit of time, still that last opportunity to spot Kunyuma. Either way, we'll have a great, watch going through here, we'll have a great opportunity and a great starting point for our sunset safari. Perhaps I'll finally get to meet Kunyuma properly and enjoy his company. And Bren, since we have got this little bit of extra unexpected time, we wanted to confirm the name of the wild dog pack. It is the Sands half-tail pack. So the half-tail pack that you have seen in the past, but now with the pups out and about and away from the den. So on behalf of Scott, a big thanks to Wium, who was on camera with him, as well as to our fantastic ladies in FC, to Jerry and to Nikki. They've done a wonderful job. And of course to all of you for your fantastic questions and the interesting topics we've discussed. Have a wonderful day, and this time it actually is goodbye.